Welcome to New Realities. My name is Alan Steinfeld, and this show is about the exploration of a revolution that's happening in this country, a revolution of subtle energies, of spiritual understanding, and different forms of healing are part of that process of understanding who we are as beings that have this life force that's pumping through us, that's animating this body, that body, our bodies. And how can we work with this field of energy is the topic of tonight's show. I have Eric Pearl of the Reconnection and Kelly Woodruff, one of the teachers of the Reconnection. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
First I want to say is that Eric is featured prominently in this film, The Living Matrix. Now this film talks about some of the miracles of the Reconnection that you've worked with people, and is there any way to explain what you're doing, what the Reconnection is, or is it more like an intuitive sense of it?
You know, miracle really is a good word too, and I heard someone put it this way, that some things are difficult to explain, miracles speak for themselves. Right. Because how do you explain what a miracle is? If I work with a child with cerebral palsy, for example, as in the DVD.
Yes.
I worked on that child for 4 minutes. I didn't work on that child for 4 minutes because I thought, well, I'm just going to work for 4 minutes. What happened was they carried him up after a presentation that I had given in Greece. And the family didn't believe in this, but the neighbors brought him up and said, would you do a session when I was getting off the stage? And he was in leg braces. His toes would touch the ground, but his heels couldn't. He was scheduled for surgery for that. He wasn't able to speak and be understood. The mother would interpret for the family what she thought that he meant, and he would have to hold on to your clothes or furniture to be able to stand. So we worked for what I thought was going to be a while, and the venue said they were closing. 4 minutes into it, the child got off the table, went down the only 6 steps from the stage, but then ascended the entire stairway of this miniature coliseum, stood at the top with his arms out, big smile, the corners of his mouth touching his ears, and huge, giant, they looked like chocolate marble eyes beaming. And he started to come down the stairs, and the parents, instead of looking excited, looked a little worried, and they started to run towards him, and he saw them, and he knew, and he shook his finger, and he said, no, I'm going to do it again. He ran back up, he came back down. Now, is it a miracle? Well, what's a miracle? What we don't really understand?
No, I'd say that was a miracle.
There was a time you turn on a little box and people sing and dance, and that's a miracle. And today it's television and we turn it on for background sound.
Yeah, but what did you do? What was...
I waved my hands in the air looking like an idiot over this child. I mean, how do you do it? You do the same thing. Kelly does the same thing that I do with the same efficacy.
You teach people how to do this. Like, Kelly is one of your main teachers and students. There must be something, and I know it's a whole course and a whole weekend. You don't have to go through all that here. But there's an intention that you are projecting.
How do you convey this? How do you teach it?
Well, you know,
since you're the one going to be doing the New York seminar, teaching it here.
Yeah, how would you explain what Eric has...
Well, you know, we can all understand that something has changed on the planet. There's no question. There's been a shift. Right. We recognize that it's a very real phenomena. In that shift, there's something that's newly available for us, something that's newly available for us to access, which we refer to as a bandwidth or a new set of frequencies, the reconnective healing frequencies. When we access that, we literally begin to vibrate at a level that allows us to access a level of information that we couldn't prior.
So you were able, with whatever you did, discover a new bandwidth. If we buy this, I think that's great. Yeah.
If we want to call it a bandwidth or a spectrum or a continuum, I mean, the words sort of fail us as to what this is, because frequencies are almost mechanical sounding as a word, and it's not. It's life. It's an expansion of life that reminds us inside of who we are as life. It reminds us of who we are as light. Here, give me your hand for a moment. Just hold your fingers there. Perfect. When I do this, I come in and I just let myself feel. Now, this is an awkward angle for us, but we're going to try it.
Are you feeling something?
I'm feeling something, and I'm watching. If you watch your index finger, do you see it move?
I'm feeling something too.
Can you describe it?
I'm feeling like a slight pressure, a slight buzz, a vibration. I mean, this is sort of what I call the New Age handshake, but...
All right, does it stay the same or does it change?
It does change.
How?
It changes in the subtleties of feeling, of pressure, let's say.
Is there less or is there more?
The tingling goes from tips of fingers to a different tip. Now I feel a little more. Yeah, now it's almost a magnetic feeling at this point.
So what's different now?
Well, your hand's further away.
Right, Kel.
Right.
And then now, yeah, that's a slightly different feeling, but similar. It's a similar
It's always
frequency.
different because we're all different in the interaction.
I still feel that. That's good. Now, you just describe what you are doing without giving away the whole course.
You couldn't possibly
possibly
give away
in
the
2
whole
minutes.
All right,
course.
no, but
Impossible.
because
I wish the 3-day seminar were a 5-day seminar,
Right.
you know?
Okay.
We literally are just in our observation because we have been indeed trained to understand what this new thing feels like. So through this observation, I literally am just beginning to have my own experience of the feelings of that. And in this observation, it allows you then to begin to resonate.
Right.
It
And I
allows
feel that.
you to then access this same spectrum, bandwidth, continuum. You know, it's a really good point about the word frequency because we don't really have a good word.
Well, frequency does do it for me because when you change the radio to slightly different station, slightly different frequency, you get a whole new signal.
It helps. It helps. But you see, we were talking about life as a reminder, but also light as a reminder. And part of this is some wonderful insight that comes about through your friend Lynn McTaggart's, our friend Lynn McTaggart's book, The Field. Because we know from the work of Dr. Fritz Popp and others today that each cell in our body with DNA emits a specific level of light. And that level of light has an optimal level for health for a human being, which is different than for a cow or a goat or a donkey. Now, let's look at light different ways and the role it plays in life. Obviously, without the sun, there'd be no life on the planet. If you speak with people who've had the real life after death experience, not the ones who claim to have died 27 times, you'll find that they come back and they speak of the light that they were presented to as where we all come from and where we all return to, and they speak of it in the same terms, and that light is love, and that love also we have no words for. Now, isn't this interesting then, that the DNA in each of our cells also emits light, and that it took us until this century to even determine that. So what happens with reconnective healing is, well, what happens with energy healing? Let's try it this way. When the researchers first started studying what Kelly and I are teaching, they said to me, we think that this is a level of healing that hasn't been here on the planet before. And I said, that's a really bold statement. How can you say something like that? They said, it's really easy if you just understand 2 basic concepts. A, we're 4-dimensional beings. We're height, width, depth, and time. So if we visualize this little bubble in this huge, vast, endless universe, and this little bubble represents our playground, the wall or the cell of the bubble is comprised of height, width, depth, and time. And the interior, as we've always learned, has been energy. Everything here has been energy. So when we focus in with an energy healing technique, it's like taking a telescope and focusing in on one aspect, different subsets of what comprised the entirety of energy that was here. That's why there's a different technique. That's why there are different feelings.
I agree with you, and I think everyone can start to bring through a unique healing frequency. I mean, I feel like you have connected to something original, and you fine-tune it, and the way it's taught is that you are making a transmission in a sense. You're initiating, this is just what comes to me, you're initiating people into the frequency. I mean, I can put your hand up and let me see if I can, tap a different...
I always feel it's not different though. You see, that's the point
or
I'm
maybe
trying to
it's
explain.
the reconnection, because what I feel like I'm doing, I'm expanding your light field by doing this. I'm pulling it out to activate more of the light that's in the cells. More. This is the image that
You're
comes
playing,
to me.
and our intention isn't to do any one thing.
Okay, good.
Which is sort of interesting. In other words, it's what I would call transmodality. Let me finish with that analogy so this
go
will make
ahead.
sense. So when we focus in with alpha, beta, delta, gamma, X, Y, Z, Reiki, Qigong, Jinshin, they're all different fractions, different subsets of energy, because everything's been energy. But suddenly, time is expanding. Time is moving faster in all directions at once. It's expanding, which is further expanding our bubble out into the universe. So it encompasses more of what's always existed out here. So it's timeless, but hasn't been in here in our bubble of height, width, depth, and time. So it's new here. Now this will royally tend to piss off a lot of the New Age community.
Why is that?
Because they like everything to be old so that they can sound as if they're already familiar with it. I remember this.
My teacher said we're here to make known the unknown.
Right.
Which is what you've been doing by teaching a new healing frequency.
We have to demystify the process to allow it to become clear and transparent for everyone.
You see, what I do think, and what I think you're part of, is that we are moving into, let's call it fifth dimension. The feeling of those subtle energies that you guys do, that's an awakening of our subtle body, of a sensitivity within us that is a new level of humanity. That's what I feel. That's why I'm doing this program. Does that make sense to you?
That makes sense. And look at it this way. Think of if you're looking at the sky. You want to understand the sky. Of course, the sky really is just the portion of the sky that we can see, because obviously the universe is endless. So let's just say there's the endless universe, and then there's the portion of it we call the sky. So there's the endless universe, and there's the portion that we've had, which has been called energy here.
Right.
Now, we take a telescope, and we focus in on an area of the sky that we can see here so we can learn it better. And we take another over here, and we adjust it over there. Now, for us to focus in like such as that, we lose just one thing. We lose the vastness of the picture.
Right.
But so once we have gotten aspects of it, it comes time to put the telescope down, so that now with our knowledge we can understand more of the vastness of the picture. This is where we are today. We're at a point where we may now go into, shall we call it, a transmodality healing. It transcends the modalities, the techniques. It allows us to put the telescopes down, and by doing so, it contains everything that every picture that each of the telescopes has been able to bring us. But it also conveys what's been in between, and it conveys what's been beyond, because now we're able to extrapolate further. So it's not that this is a different frequency. What we're able to learn how to do now is to transcend the techniques and access the comprehensive. So instead of accessing our parts, we're accessing it in its entirety.
But you are teaching a technique.
No.
Right? You're not.
The
Tell me
whole thing we're teaching is how to transcend technique itself. You wanna
But
try?
then what's the... Okay, so Eric discovered something, and then...
We
he's
think of
held
Eric as
classes,
sort of the
yes.
lightning rod that brought it to Earth, if you will.
Okay,
This ability to access these
I've heard that one
frequencies.
before, but okay.
That's what I think of.
So he's accessed frequencies, but then he's not teaching it necessarily.
No, because you
Okay.
have to understand that when we teach our seminar, we say very clearly, part of the work is indeed taught, because it's important for people to understand that we're in a new space.
Yeah.
And let go of the techniques. Let
Okay.
go.
Okay.
But really, the aspect that is unobtainable elsewhere is that it's caught. To learn the work, you're interacting with these frequencies in a very specific way.
Once we reconnect with our original fullness in the universe, we resonate, we vibrate at a different level. Our interaction becomes an entrainment. So as we access the spectrum of energy, light, and information, which the researchers say that they have not seen here before, which is part of what I was getting to there, not being old, but being new here.
Something unknown.
It changes us. It changes, the studies have shown that it changes our gamma rays. It changes the way our heart waves and brain waves interact. It changes the way we entrain. So what you are feeling here is actually a vibration of this more comprehensive light. The light resonating within you does something inside that it says, figuratively speaking, I remember this. This is me vibrating as light. I think I'll do it again. And with that simplicity, your body tends to return to its natural light vibration, and anything denser than light, which tends to include most health challenges, has pretty much nothing left to hold on to. So if appropriate for that person, that health challenge simply falls away. And if we take nothing else home from this interview, let's take home the next two sentences. A, healing is just that simple. And B, anything more complicated than that is designed to sell us something. But you see, the one thing we can't buy is what we already own.
What we already
So
are.
it's time to come home. Right.
One of the guys that we've done research with is Dr. William Tiller.
Okay.
You know, Tiller was a professor emeritus from Stanford. He was What the Bleep, is very well
I've
known.
interviewed him. He's a
You
great
know,
guy.
He's brilliant guy.
Yeah.
And he recognizes that something physically happens in the space when we teach the seminar. And he theorizes that that change that happens is what allows for people to entrain so easily, quickly to this new vibration. Really, I always joke that a lot of what we teach them is to get out of their own way, get out of their head, and be present with what's new and what they're observing. You know, and that's a tricky thing. That's a tricky thing.
Let's add that what Dr. Tiller found was also confirmed by Dr. Gary Schwartz from the University of Arizona.
What did they find? What did all these people find?
Okay, and also Konstantin Krakow in Russia. What they say is that the space becomes conditioned, or another term they use sometimes is duplexing or coupling, but conditions are standard
or
space.
coherence is another word for that.
You could say that.
Yeah.
But well, you're more familiar with those studies.
Well, you know, Bill says that what happens is that there's some genuine change that happens in the room. He measures what he calls the ambient free energy of the room, which for him is a marker of how this level of reality is coupled with the alternate universe, what he considers another level of reality, where the natural rules of that reality are health, order, of wholeness, as opposed to entropy, which we suffer in this universe, which is falling apart.
You know, but I think coherence or that comes together anytime there's a field of people learning a particular idea, and then that space becomes coherent.
There are levels of coherence that come about.
What seems to me is a level of transmission. When people are in that coherent field, they're getting, let's call it the reconnection.
It's like you're steeping in a tea bag, steeping in water.
And then they can access that field. Is that what's happening, or what do you think is happening in the field?
I believe that's pretty good.
Yes, absolutely.
And then after they've accessed it,
they learn, and
can
what we teach them
duplicate
is
it.
to learn to recognize it. That's the key.
I
is
see.
that it's one thing certainly to sit in a room in this, even in a reconnective healing seminar, and not learn the part of how to then replicate or what to recognize what they're accessing. That's what we spend the 2 days.
I see.
You know, there's really a very good way to explain this in another way. We teach reconnective kids. Right?
Okay.
We have a program where we teach kids from age 4 to 14 to access the exact same level. It takes us 2 to 2.5 days to teach adults. That's about pretty much everybody walks out 2.5 days.
But wait.
Kids, 2 hours.
Yeah, because
2
they're
hours.
already there, right?
They don't have to unlearn anything. There's nothing for them to have to forget or to
They
get
don't
over
come
themselves.
in. They don't come in with they don't come in with the ego of running over to something and saying, "Oh, do I have permission to do this? Let me do a muscle test or use my pendulum." They're not in fear of doing things wrong. You see, every choice that we make comes either from fear, lack, and limitation, the illusion of separation or darkness, or love, abundance, prosperity, light. Healing obviously would reside over here. But you see, we can't give a gift that we're unwilling to receive ourselves. We can't stand there in fear, protecting ourselves in a white flame or a purple flame or a gold flame, and facilitate healing that resides over here in love.
Of course.
We can't stand in lack and limitation, thinking that we have to use special pendants to make us more, or amulets or crystals, and facilitate healing that resides in abundance. We can't stand over here in the need for control as we decide to sweep 3 times up to the right and out to the west, and yet be in the freedom of the love and abundance to facilitate healings.
I know what you're saying, because
Yeah.
who we are, and that's what I talk about, divine incarnational beings, is already the I am presence. And
Right.
it's like
The essence of who we are.
And I think what you guys are doing is helping to add to the upliftment of this consciousness. We are moving as a species. And I think even more things will be coming to you.
You know, it's interesting. You asked
Yeah.
Eric before we started, how has the work changed? You
Yes.
know, and Eric, speaking of steeping
Yes.
in it constantly every day, you know, for 45 weeks of a year that he's on the road
Uh-huh.
traveling, you know, it maybe hasn't the perspective. But we who are just a hair step back, you know, I teach maybe 5, 6, 7 seminars a year. I will tell you that I've been doing the work for 8.5 years. I've been assisting Eric for about seven years now, and teaching my own seminars for a little over two almost 3 years. Something's happening every time we teach another group of people.
Yeah, tell me, because this is
Something happens. The work has evolved in a very specific and yet I would say subtle way, in that it seems to indeed be increasing, getting larger. And I believe
what's getting larger? The
just
field?
the field, the access, the feeling. You know, when I began to teach, it was it seemed to be a much more laborious process to get people from point A to the end of the weekend. Now people really have an extremely joyous, fun move through the work, you know, and something genuinely shifted.
Let me give you the simplicity of what you would anticipate. Let's say you were coming to a seminar, so you understand. Usually when I do it, I do a Friday night presentation and a Saturday and Sunday. Kelly blends the Friday and Saturday into 2 days. What happens on a Friday night is I give a 3-hour presentation, talk about the history, the theory, the science. Then we bring volunteers up from the audience so you can see live demonstrations of the healings, hopefully on yourself or people that you know, so you get the reality of it. And we give everyone an opportunity to feel it in your hands. But Saturday and Sunday, what we're doing here, it's a real working seminar.
We get them right up.
Right. In other words, there's a stage in the center of the room, chairs on one side, massage tables on the others, one massage table for every 2 people or 4 people, depending on what we're doing. Kelly will demonstrate a part of the work, how it functions. We go to the tables. The teaching team walks around.
Typically we'll have anywhere from maybe 1 teaching assistant for every 6 to 10, 12 people. So there's a lot of hands-on work, and people are led step by step in the development of their observation. And they are able to begin to understand that what they're feeling in their hands can be correlated to what they're seeing in the people on the table.
But Saturday and Sunday is different. Saturday and Sunday are real working seminars. So the first thing I tell everyone is don't come. If you think we're all going to sit around, hold hands, and sing Kumbaya, my Lord, because it will not happen that way. What happens is that there's a stage in the center of the room, chairs on one side, massage tables on the other. We'll demonstrate a level of the work from the stage, and we all go to the massage tables, usually in groups of 2, sometimes 4. The teaching assistants and Kelly and I, we go around each of the table, we take your hands, we show you how to begin to feel something while someone is lying down on your massage table. And the moment that you do, you start to see, usually their eyes rapidly dart back and forth. We'll show you how to feel something else.
See, that's a transmission. It's interesting. Go ahead.
When you tune into that, you'll start to see their fingers move. There's something else. Their feet will move. When you move back here again, their fingers go. You move back here, their eyes, and you start to recognize that when I do this and I feel this, I am bringing about this effect. When I do this and I'm feeling that, I'm bringing about that effect. Not just a transmission, but you're a catalyst. It's the power of 3 coming together to create a greater power of 1. The power of 3 being God, love, or the universe, pick the word you're happiest with, the person lying on the table, and you as the practitioner. So after you see that, we go back to the chairs, talk about what we did, discuss the philosophy a little more, give some more of the science for the understanding to whatever level science can understand it.
Right.
Go back to tables, do it again, and by the end of these 2 days, I can pretty much make you 2 promises. That A, you will be able to do anything and everything in the way of healing that I can do or that Kelly can do. And B, you'll be able to do anything and everything in the way of healing that any human being on this planet can do, whether they were raised by monks in a cave in a mountaintop in Tibet and fed grains of seed, each one flown into the beak of an individually hand-painted bird, or whether they moved to a church in Brazil and changed their last name to of God. Right. It doesn't matter the story, but it does matter the willingness to transcend the story. So here's just the last point around to understand here. There's a gift, like the front and the back of a coin. There's a gift or reward, depending on your perspective, and a challenge. The gift or the reward is that this allows you to completely transcend technique and in return access so much more. The healings with reconnective healing are very different from energy healings in many ways, including the fact that they tend to be fairly instantaneous and they tend to last for that person's lifetime. The challenge is whether or not you're willing to transcend the technique.
No, I get that. I get all that,
Sure.
and I appreciate what you're saying, and I love it. I support it. And when I said transmission, it seems like you're a candle, or you're a candle, and you're lighting someone else's candle.
That's very good.
That's the transmission of the teacher. Somehow, for some reason, you were downloaded with a frequency that now you're passing and helping people. This is just my interpretation. May not be right, but you're allowing people to get out of the way and allowing the blueprint of their life force to reactivate themselves and other people in this awakening.
Right. It's
a
perfect
level of
analogy.
awakening.
That's beautiful.
When you take a candle to light another candle, to light another candle,
That's what
you
a
never,
teacher does.
Right. You never see that flame doing a technique.
Right.
You never see the flame protecting itself or cowering in fear or looking for something to make it more. It's simply by standing in its own perfection of beauty and essence and integrity, it simply inspires the next flame to ignite and the next.
I get that, and I think that is great. So let's go beyond all of this and let's just talk about where we're going as a civilization with these tools, with this understanding of this biophotonic being emerging in all of us. I think we're moving to a place where everyone's going to understand that.
As Eric said earlier, it's an experience of one weekend.
Right.
And if there is indeed something now that you can learn in one weekend that can allow you to reconnect to this fullness of the universe, allow you to allow yourself to heal for yourself and for others, why would you not? Why would you not? So come join us.
I've been talking to Eric Pearl and Kelly Woodruff of the Reconnection. If you want to reach them, go to thereconnection.com. And if you want to reach me, go to NewRealities, NewRealities.com, and email me at newrealities@earthnews.net.